kid from the bush who grew into a legend in his own lunchtime, former SAS soldier Michael J. Malone has seen it all. This is Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, hosted by the man himself, Mick Malone, along with Toby Malone, as they examine this long, storied career in the Australian Special Forces. Join us each week for behind-the-scenes insight, exclusive readings, and brutally honest truths from a true original. Welcome to Never Die Wondering. Welcome to episode 34 of Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, a podcast that explores the life and legend of Michael John Malone, OAM. My name is Toby Malone, Mick's son and co-host of this podcast series, joined by the man whose name is in the title, Mick Malone. G'day, Dad.
There you are, mate.
I'm good. And this week we are joined by a special guest. Our first special guest on Never Die Wondering, aside from myself and my father. Welcome, Joe Malone. Hi, Mum.
Thank you for having me. Very privileged. Very privileged.
Well, we thought it would be a good idea to have you on this episode of Never Die Wondering, because this is the chapter in which you debut, when you make a dramatic entrance into Mick Malone's life.
Ta-da.
And we were just talking before we started recording, where you said that every word of this chapter is a lie, and it was all made up. So we're gonna be able to get into some conversations at the end about what actually happened. But we never let truth get in the way of a good story around here. So have you had a chance to, you've been listening along to Never Die Wondering over the last few weeks?
I've been following you as you've been recording it. I haven't sat down and listened to it, the actual recordings of it yet, but I've been listening to as it's been happening.
Right. Well, we're going to get you to start listening and bump up our numbers a little bit so you can know what we're talking about.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll do that soon.
What do you think about this whole project?
I think it's great. I think it's an opportunity, because there are only much stuff you can put on the pages of the book. Otherwise, it would be like, 14 volumes if you fit everything in that you've done in your lifetime.
14 volumes of truth.
Of truth. Yeah.
Truth.
So it's great to fill in some of the gaps and some of the questions that arise when you read a line and you go, well, what happened next? Or, the backstory of something that isn't in the written word. And it just adds another level of personality, I suppose, to the already vibrant and amazing documentation of your life.
Turn it up. Smoke blowing exercise.
Darling, I've got to.
Well, I mean, this is why we wanted to bring you on, because you bring a certain kind of style to the proceedings, and this is your story too. So from here on in, you're a fixture in the narrative.
I arrived page 215, and the world as you knew it changed.
It did.
Yeah. So we get a chance to read about the big change that happened up until this point. I mean, so where were you mentally up until this point, Dad, before you met Mum? Were you on a good trajectory, do you think?
No, I was out of order, actually.
Yeah.
We just come home a couple of years ago, and we was just on the grog.
Right.
Making galahs of ourselves. Didn't care about much else. Pulling kicks in the front.
Right.
A long time's very low.
No, that's awesome. So, but we'll hear the story today. We're going to, this is a chapter that has plenty of great photos. So if you have a chance to pick up a copy of Two Ranks on the Road and see all these great photos of these young people, just as they first connected, and we'll show that on the YouTube channel at the end of this reading. But yeah, today, how about we jump into it? Let's read about how you two met in one version of the story, at least. So today we'll be reading chapter 31 of Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone OAM, published in 2024 by Imprimatur Books, Perth. This chapter, entitled Quantum Shift, covers pages 215 to 224 in the print edition. The ebook may have slightly different numbering, so follow from the beginning of the chapter. As we read, the body of the text will be read by author Mick Malone. Whenever we come across a footnote, we'll pause in the least disruptive way possible, and I will read the footnotes. And now, without further ado, Two Ranks on the Road.
Chapter 31, Quantum Shift, 1974. What do you think of me so far? In early 1974, there was a quantum shift. I met the love of my life, Joanne Margot Blue. She was a tall, sparkling 21-year-old uni student with fun at the forefront of her mind. A few of the boys, including Hugh and Miller and Lee Fisher, rented an old house in Lion Street, Cottesloe. They were having a party one weekend and noticed the cute young woman who would wash her mustard Datsun 180 in the driveway. Being a sneaky bugger, Hugh went over there and knocked on the door, which was answered by an older woman.
Footnote. Ewan had a puppy who would constantly escape his yard. Dawn, my future mother-in-law, would regularly rescue the escapee dog and put it back over the fence for him.
We're having a party on Saturday, and I was wondering if you'd like to come. I'm sorry, said the lady. I'm just about to leave for overseas, but I'm sure my daughter would like to come. So on Saturday night, a bunch of us, bedraggled by the day on the beach and at the OBH, turned up at the party. I immediately noticed this girl on a chair in the backyard talking to the wives and girlfriends and thought, I'll just have a yarn to her. My name's Mick Malone. What do you think of me so far? I prattled using a Ewan Miller special.
Not much, she said.
I was unshaven with dirty feet, bare feet, wearing a ripped Cottesloe Surf Club t-shirt. Not an attractive proposition for anyone, but it was while it was what it was. After a bit of drunken patter, I asked her if she wanted to come with me to get some ice. Yes, she said. We jumped in my ute and slipped down to the OBH drive-in, picked up the ice and returned to the party. Not sure where I slept that night, but it wasn't at her place. I recall asking her if she wanted to come to the cricket with us next morning.
Yes, yes.
She said, obviously a risk taker. Western Australia were playing New Zealand at the Wacker, and we planned to be there when the first ball was bowled.
Footnote. I've long had a memory that this cricket match was a test between Australia and New Zealand, featuring the express bowling of DK Lilly and Richard Hadley. Some fact-checking proved this to be a false memory since New Zealand didn't play a test in WA for another decade, and Lilly didn't even play for WA in this match. I think my attention was distracted by my beautiful lady, truth be told.
Ain't that the truth? Where are we at here? We got to the Wacker and with our eskies full of beer and proceeded to pick a spot on the grassy hill. Towels laid out and posies occupied. We all stripped down to our budgie smugglers. Joe was a little taken aback by this brash display of manhood, but was cool about saying anything. We were all pretty ripped after our exertions in Vietnam, but were heading the way of those who drank too much. It was a great day, and I have no idea what the score was, although I know that WA batted first, amassed a pile of runs, and Hadley was so fast, as they said. Joe and I have been together ever since, 49 years married in 2024. Meeting her was a pivotal moment in my life thus far, and since it appeared there was a mutual attraction, I planned to make it last. Around the same time, my mate Johnny Juvie Matten decided to buy an off-road bike, and a few of us followed suit. He had an Ossa. I bought a 360cc Yamaha dirt bike. Leno Smith and others bought Honda Elsinores, and others made. Soon we had enough to form our own club. and got permission to build a motocross track at the back of the rifle range in the sand dunes. Every Wednesday, sports day, we would all head down the back for some helter-skelter. Our standard of riding increased dramatically and encouraged a few of us to enter some of the state races.
Footnote, I rode in D grade and my number was 241, as imprinted on my brain as my army number.
We rode at Noble Falls, Cosy Creek in Manjimup, Herne Hill, Coastal and various other tracks. It was great fun. Jo loved every minute of it. She was my support crew and just loved sitting around with the fire with all these larrikins at night while they sang disgracefully rival songs. So back to the art to arms. By this stage, we were, excuse me. By this stage, we were working up the concept of VM patrols using 2 or 3 vehicles. Whilst we worked on the big picture, we had to attend with our idiot OC's directive that whilst we could remove the canvas roofs and windscreen for an exercise, it all had to be returned to normal after the exercise. Sea Troop 1 Squadron, under the irrepressible George Garvin, had no such limitations and even engaged in engineering works out at Osborne Park to build gun mounts front and back. They also built side bins to store rations and ammo. We took delegations to our OC and he finally relented. We were able to make Sea Troop modifications, and whilst our Series 2A Land Rovers weren't designed for what we had in mind for them, we made them work. We were proud of our efforts, and our first exercise saw them perform adequately. Some of our modifications included extended bull bars with spare wheels mounted on the front, but we changed that after an exercise when 2 vehicles had difficulty negotiating steep creek banks.
Footnote, bit like modern Lamborghinis and speed bumps.
Oh, God. We also introduced motorbikes as scouts, with Johnny Matten leading the way on his cammed up Ossa. Rear gun mounts became a cause celeb when we were searching for the ideal. We came up with a gun seat mounted on a gun spindle, which the gunner would ride. We gave this away eventually because it meant that every uncomfortable ride meant a very uncomfortable ride for the bloke in the back, and he at times came close to being thrown off. The front gun mount in front of the commander was more straightforward. We had a choice between early on we mounted ANPRC 20 sets in the middle between the driver and the commander. As there was the VHF line of sight, we had a separate HF radio, initially the 510 to speak to Swanbourne. Early in the piece, we were worried about the full combat load we were expecting this poor vehicle carry into action. So we loaded one vehicle to the gunnels and everything we thought would be needed in combat. This included 2 weeks' rations, 8 jerry cans of water, 6 jerry cans of petrol, and ammo in belts. All our patrol webbing, personal weapons, and radios. We then drove down to the Irwin Barracks weighbridge at Karrakatta to see how the vehicle handled it. We were shocked to see the springs flattened to the point of breaking. We were very concerned. From this came the concept of the mothership. The Brits had developed their Pinky Land Rover years before to work in the sands of North Africa. Their vehicle concept followed what SAS had done in North Africa in World War II, driving a 4-wheel drive Willys Jeep. Our mothership was a Unimog, a large truck, which we found impossible to hide in the field. In L Troop, we decided the MOG would be used to establish caches of fuel, rations, and ammo prior to the troop leaving the barracks. Our technique in hiding our Land Rover was simple. We dug 4 holes, 4 wheel-sized trenches, and rolled the vehicle into them, thus reducing the profile considerably, while a cam net over the top completed the job. This was very simple and was ideal for lengthy trips, lengthy stops such as night hides and LUPs. Lengthy RVs and comm stops and surveillance of major roads. The MGs were easily detached for use off the vehicles if required. We lost Johnny, JJ Jewell, around this time on an exercise at Exmouth. L Troop was hoochied up near the lighthouse when one night we heard someone calling for help. The radio shack was silent, which was unusual in exercises, as the radios were normally manned 24/7. Johnny Matten, ever reactive, grabbed a dolphin torch and raced out on the road to find JJ with a bullet wound to his chest and close to unconsciousness. Of course, the first vehicle they grabbed him to transport him to Exmouth Hospital ran out of fuel just before they even got going. A fair dinkum clusterfuck, I thought. There will be some heads rolling over this. JJ went off to hospital and survived, but we never saw him again. He was put down as an accident with no one else involved. His story was he stepped in a turtle hole and accidentally shot himself. The Board of Inquiry agreed, and the matter was closed.
Footnote: years later, JJ took his own life. R.I.P.
So Johnny Matten became our troop sergeant, and he was a ripper of a troop sergeant, and our lives became fun again. I can't recall who our troop commander was at this time. It may have been Paul Robon. He was a good troop commander and enjoyed riding bikes. I had a little Belgian ex-SAS bloke as my driver, Philippe Claude Pip Eloy. Who was a joy to be around. The blokes relentlessly took the piss out of him, but he gave it back strongly. He was a bit of a master chef and was always keen to demonstrate his skills in the bush. But our blokes were all bushies who enjoyed a feed of Malone's commando stew more than anything fancy. I kept plenty of curry powder and Tabasco sauce at hand, with potatoes, carrots, and whatever meat we could shoot that day. Roo, camel, and goat stew were favourites. Once we were up on the edge of the Gibson Desert and met up with a station owner who wanted a hand with his windmills on his property of around 1 million acres. He had windmills dotted around about 10 miles apart, and he wanted help in placing them precisely on his maps. He had a box of flares which he gave us to use. When we got to a windmill, he would put up a flare, and if he could see it, he would take a bearing on it and put it on his map. After a day of this and 10 or 12 windmills down, we came back to the homestead for the night. He said, skip down to the house and get the lump of meat out of the big fridge on the veranda. When I got there, the only meat in the fridge was an enormous lump of what I thought was a piece of prime steak. I grabbed it and went back to our camp where the boys had built a good fire and we cracked a few cold ones with the station owner. When I got there, I pointed out that all I could find in the fridge was this piece of brine beef. That's not beef, son, that's prime camel. So into the camp oven with it, and with the potatoes, carrots, onions, and curry powder, of course, and it would take 3 hours to be perfect, and it was. Another time on a squadron exercise up around Shark Bay, we somehow accumulated a bunch of baby animals, which we had 2 roos and 2 goats in the back of Juvie's car, and became known as Matten's Menagerie. I'm unsure what became of them in the end, probably the pot, but I think Juvie got all over the coals over his little zoo. On yet another occasion, Boobs Allen, Stan Walker, and I were detailed to set up a radio relay station at the Meekatharra Racecourse as on an exercise named Green Parrot.
Footnote,
With
it was,
me?
it was commanded by Ross Bishop, who had been our Squadron 2IC in Vietnam. He was originally a signals officer from 152, but had switched over to infantry to be Reg's 2IC. He must have been OC 3 Squadron at the time, promoted to Major.
The aim of the exercise was to recon the edge of the desert looking for sources of water and Aboriginal tribes. Our role was to man the radio and relay any messages back to Swanbourne. We had two scads a day, one at 8 o'clock and one at 1600. The rest of the day and night was our free time. These were the days before credit cards or ATMs, and we ran short of money pretty quickly. So someone had the bright idea to go roo shooting. We had to make sure the carcasses delivered to the butchers were reasonably intact. We bought $50 worth of 308 ammo, and after the first couple of nights, we shot $50 worth of roos. It was a real bust. Stan went down to the local truck garage and got a job changing truck tyres, which kept us in beer money for a week. Luckily, we had plenty of army rations, so we weren't going to starve. Boobs also supplemented our rations with pigeons he trapped out at the racecourse. Pigeon roasted over an open fire, sans viscera, is quite delectable. We also ate quite a bit of roo meat roasted over the fire and even made a roo stew on a couple of days there. We'd picked up some herbs and spices from town and add to our stews. Delicious every time. We hooched it up in the shed stables with our stretchers and sleeping bags, so we were quite comfortable. There were 4 pubs in Meeka, and we knew them all. The Meekatharra Hotel was where the locals gravitated, so we kept out of there. The Royal Mail at the top of the town was owned by an ex-CIB cop, and he was keen for the army boys to drink there. When the squadron returned from the desert, he insisted that hot showers and meals were free if we spent all our money over his bar. Of course, the boys were only too glad to comply. There were a couple of delightful chicks in one of the pubs, so one or two of us never got back to the racecourse.
Footnote, not me, Your Honour.
We also did some remote locality cooperation training with the RAF F-111 squadron on the edge of the Gibson Desert. We were out there grading a bush strip by ingeniously dragging a piece of PSP behind a Land Rover. When it's a specific time, we turned a HF radio on and went back to work. At a designated time, an F-111 flew over us at close to 0 feet, causing us all to hit the deck. Fair dinkum, shits were trumps. The F-111 had flown from RAF Base Amberley in Queensland and flew straight down our radio signal, probably a distance of 3,000 miles. We achieved the aim, and then he flew home.
Footnote, what a plane this beast was. The USAF used them quite extensively in Vietnam to great effect. We retired ours a few years ago without firing a shot.
Around this time, Sea Troop ceased to function when George Garvin headed for the gate. George had served a long time, and the pasture beckoned. As a result, Don Jensen, Harry Rossiter, Eddie Gooch, and others came across to L Troop. The main skill Don brought to the troop was that of astronavigation. Both troops had taken on celestial navigation as a mean of locating oneself in the desert or finding caches. I was never very good at this at theodolite, but others were. I found it to be a total embuggerance, but we persevered with it for about 12 months. We used Astro as one of our major exercises in the Kimberleys, but that was it. End of chapter.
And that was chapter 31 from Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone, as read by the author and his wife.
And his wife.
Well, you contributed a couple of lines in there.
I know, memorable.
Yeah, memorable times. So I'm glad you were here
Beautiful.
for this. So it's this feels like an apt chapter, not only just because we meet you in the chapter, but an apt chapter where you show up briefly in the beginning and then he goes away from for a long time out
Yeah.
into the bush with all of the blokes with the trucks and stuff like that. Feels like that was a theme throughout your marriage.
It
Yeah.
was very much so, very much so. And it was like, hello, what's this all about? We had, when we met, it was like we saw each other every day for about a month, I think it was. And we went dancing at you didn't put any of that in. We went dancing at what was the name of the nightclub down in Cottesloe?
Oh, I can't. Okay.
Every night. So we'd go out to the nightclub and then at 4 o'clock 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd go home, get changed and go to work. And so it was just this wild courtship, I
I
suppose,
wasn't going to put that in there.
of fun and dancing and laughing. And it was like, okay, fantastic. And then he went away for a month, and I'm going, hang on, what's this all about? And I don't know if no, it was then. It was a later time. And then when he came back, it was like, come on, let's go night clubbing. He said, I hate nightclubs. I hate dancing. I said, what do you
Truth comes
mean?
out.
He said, it's okay. I don't have to do that anymore because
Oh.
I've got, you don't remember
You
that.
are so cruel.
It's not cruel. It's true. And I went, oh, bugger. Anyway, it was, yeah. So it was fun.
There's a few photographs in that chapter.
There are some great photos in this chapter. Yeah, so we start off the first time it relates to motocross. So I'm just going to hold it up to the screen. This is on page 217, I believe, of a very young
Yeah.
Joe, 22 years old, at the motocross, and that helmet is still in the house somewhere. I think
It
that
is.
motocross helmet is still kicking. It's more of an ornament now than
We're
something
going to
you
use a funerary urn.
put your ashes in there,
Yeah, yeah.
walk it down the aisle.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. We'll put that on the list of things to do.
So
Um,
that was one of the other things, we're talking about truth getting in the way of a good story. Because motocross was just so exciting, and the smell of the motocross, the motorbike fumes and the guys going around the mud and traveling down to Manjimup and all these different places with everybody and singing around the campfire at night. It was huge fun. I'd come from a relatively uh, conservative background in an all-girls school, and going to university and pondering the philosophy of life and singing Kumbaya and passing around a flagon of port, and and then I met this wild bunch of SAS, and I'm going, what is this whole another world that I didn't know existed? And the motocross was just part of it. And then the end of one season, I think we only did it for one season. And Michael said, I'm going back to rugby. And I went, what? You're going back to rugby? What's rugby? And then that started a whole
whole
relationship.
different thing. Yeah, I was
Oh,
wondering. I was wondering, and when it said in the book that you loved the motocross, I was wondering whether that was a furphy too. But that's true. You did
that
enjoy
was
the.
fun. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun because you're just going out there and be, in the boots and your jeans and the
He
mud, and
was such a supporter.
it was fun. And then it was like going back to rugby. Ugh.
Yeah, and then of course we have a few more pages of photos, and true to form, in the chapter where he talks about meeting his love of his life, we immediately go to vehicle mounted troop photos. So there are photos of the vehicle mounted troop photos. There are photos of the parachute training flight. There are photos of all sorts of training things, and then Mum gets a little look in there at the fourth photo there. So if you're just listening to the audio version, you'll have to take our words for it. There's lots of lovely photos, pages 218 and 219 in this chapter, and that photo of you at the Pagoda Ballroom in South
Yeah.
Perth, that was always one of those iconic photos in our childhood growing up.
Pity it's not in color to see Michael in his beautiful powder blue
Unbelievable.
formal suit that matched his eyes.
Oh, and those lapels are
Oh,
something to
such
be
a
seen.
handsome boy.
Yeah, I tell you what. Well, we were a pretty handsome couple,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, that's it. And Yeah.
Handsome, I tell you.
And then the last picture in this chapter is another classic, which sort of links into chapter 32, but we'll talk about it here as well, which is a photo of you on your wedding day. We'll be talking about the wedding in the next episode, but of you with a picture from the TV week. My love kept me alive, says the Logie Star. So, so I guess someone found this and got.
It was back in the day, the newspaper headlines used to be in like little things around the streets, so to entice you to buy the newspaper or the TV week. And so they just happened to be on display outside the registry office where we got married. So it was one of those opportunities, photo opportunities. It
That's
was
right.
too good to miss, and
That's right.
so it
Yeah.
became find our life in a way.
Yes, yes, indeed. My love kept me alive. Yeah, yeah. So lots of things going on in that chapter. And what, Mum, what are your memories of meeting at that party in Cottesloe?
Oh, well, it was really funny because Mum said, "Oh, the boys across the road have been invited to this party," and I said, "Well, I'm not going. I mean, hello, I'm not going unless they invite me personally, not because my mum said I'd go. Gosh." Anyway, so I got dressed to go to a party and then put my dressing gown on over the top and sat and watched TV and waited to see if there was a knock on the door, which came, and Ewan knocked at the door, and and he said, "Oh, we're having a party. We'd love you to come. Would you like to come?" And I went, "Oh, I'll think about it." He went back to the party. I threw off the dressing gown, waited for an appropriate period of time, and then went across to the party.
And
I've always been a risk taker. But what Michael actually said to me while I was sitting on this chair in the middle of the lawn talking to all the women was, "I have no recollection, actually." So if he said that, he may well have said that, but I don't.
the legend has always been, what do you think of me so far? That's
I know,
the
I
line.
know. And then sort of it was, and then I did what I always did. I ended up gravitating towards the men's conversation. I move away from the women's conversations, and I was just couldn't believe I couldn't believe the wit. It was so funny. I don't think I've ever laughed so much in my whole life at these guys. They were so clever. And the next day, going to the cricket, when Michael said, "Do you want to come to the cricket?" And I said, "Yes." In my head, I'm going, "I hate cricket. Why would I want to go to the cricket?" But it was illuminating.
A joyous occasion.
Going to the cricket and all of these guys all stripped down to their budgies, and it was definitely an eye opener.
And they all had a case of beer on their shoulders each.
On their shoulders, yeah. So I'm kind of lying back on the grass in my bikini top and enjoying the weather. And all these guys, they're all obviously parading. It was very funny, but yeah, it was a good day. I don't know anything about the cricket. I have no idea who was playing, what happened. It was just a day on the hill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd always told us that it was Australia versus New Zealand, and then when I was fact checking the book, I thought, oh, let me see if I can find out who won the game. And then I looked, and it said the first time New Zealand ever played a Test match in Perth was in 1980, and I thought, oh, hang on, that doesn't work. So I had to, or something like that. So yeah, memory is a funny thing.
Yeah, exactly. I have no idea. All I knew it was cricket.
So what did you think when you were getting, so you obviously come from a family that has some military connections. Your father served in the Second World War, and your brother was a naval commander and captain. But he was a lot younger at this point, but he was off in the Navy. I mean, he'd been to Vietnam. So, I mean, what was your thought about the military and getting involved with people, with?
Well, I was a fairly shallow young woman. I didn't really have much thought about it at all. I hadn't. My dad died when I was 11, so I'd never really had an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with him about his life or the fact that he was in the Second World War in New Guinea. So it really wasn't part of our life. We lived in country Western Australia. And it was just a kid living a country life. And you know, you really thought about your parents. My dad was just my dad who went to work and, you know, was the head of family, you know, and we had a really good family life. It was fabulous. And we moved a lot. So we moved every few years with the bank. So I never really had any knowledge of that or understanding of that until I was much older and sort of with the military.
But
and
then,
my brother,
yeah, your brother Ross, because we've talked a lot in previous episodes about how Dad's family reacted to him going to Vietnam. And what was your family's reaction when your brother had to go off?
yeah, well, Ross was away from, he left home when I was 2, and he went to Jarvis Bay as a 13-year-old. And so he was always away. So the main thing I remember at the time was I was at university when I started university in 1970. When was Ross in Vietnam?
71.
Yeah, so there was a lot going around. There's a lot of context around protests and things at universities and moratoriums and all of that kind of stuff, which I didn't really engage with. I was too involved with music and studying. But I do remember my mum being really worried because he sent home photos of him standing in the bottom of a ammunition dump that had been bombed, and they'd apparently no, the facts may be wrong. This is my recollection, and a couple of other groups had tried to make it safe, and 2 people had died, and so they brought in the
Navy EOD.
Yeah, what is it? What's the
EOD? Explosive Ordnance Disposal.
Okay, I knew that. To fix it up, and here's Ross standing in the bottom of this pit with all this unexploded stuff around him, saying, "Look, Mum, you know, look what I'm doing." And I remember thinking, you didn't have to do that, Ross. You know, it just made him more worried.
Right.
So she wasn't, you know, she was concerned that he was there, but, you know, also that was his life. That's what he loved to do. So.
And what did your mum think of Dad?
She thought, thank goodness, somebody's gonna take her off my hands. She's in pain of my life. No, she loved Michael, and she did think that nobody was ever going to marry me because I was such a wild child.
I was a lovely.
You were a lovely son-in-law. I know, and yes, when he got down on his knee and asked.
That's in the next chapter.
Oh, okay, well, I won't go into
that's okay. I don't think it's spoiling anything to find out that you ended up together.
Yeah, she was thrilled. I don't know how we'd been together. So we'd met in the January, we got engaged in October around the time of the Royal Show. And Mum was just, I think, just that sense of relief that, you know, I had somebody in my life that she liked, and that I had a future, and I wasn't going to continue to be wild and unruly.
Well, and at that time, you were 22, you were an old maid nearly.
I know. Well, back in the day, you practically were if you weren't married by the time you were. So many of my friends had 3 kids by the time they were 22. But yeah.
Right. So, well, it's great. Well, we're very glad that you were able to be here for this episode. I think it sort of adds an additional piece of context to it, and it's nice to have a third voice in the conversation, someone to pull Dad in when he, you know, makes up lies.
Never lie.
Yeah, so that's nice. But that is all the time we have this week for Never Die Wondering. So join us next week for the next installment of our exploration of Mick Malone's career as we get into the 32nd chapter of the book itself, entitled Married Life. If you have a copy of Two Ranks, read along with us. I've been Toby Malone, and thank you to Mick Malone for holistically joining me on this journey.
My pleasure, mate.
Thank you for having me.
This has been Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words. For links to purchase your own copies of Mick's books, visit the show notes or mickmalone.com.au. This podcast is produced by Toby Malone, Joe Malone, and Mick Malone, and engineered by Toby Malone. Theme music is The Happy Wanderer, the official SAS march, as reimagined by Cormac Malone and Meg Logue Malone. Yes, this is a family affair. This is a GM production in association with Imprimatur Books.